Hello, I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and you are watching Tom Talks Rubbish. It's the place for interviews, wrestling reviews, and so much more.
Sure, you subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish. I highly recommend you subscribe here first.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talks Rubbish, and today I'm back with another interview. This time, I'm joined by Jennifer Louise from Cultaholic, ICW, and Inside the Ropes. Did I miss anything?
Well, potentially, yeah, because we're going to be starting at North as a guest
yeah.
MC.
That's true, isn't it? You're going to be... Is that like, for people that don't know, the MC is the ring announcer, right?
Ring announcer, yeah. So I am terrified, Tom. I'm so scared. Honestly,
especially filling, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, fill in the shoes of the great Tom Campbell.
How am I supposed to cope with that? How am I supposed to follow? Like, how am I supposed to follow that? Like, seriously, I'm freaking out. Anyone that's bought a ticket for North, I'm just apologising in advance. Like, I am no Tom Campbell. So.
What dates are they? Because this may have gone up after that appearance.
Oh, okay. So, like, well, I might be off social media by that point then, Tom.
Why?
If I do really bad, I need to delete my social media and just go into hiding. But no, it's on the 5th of February. So it's Saturday the 5th, I believe, yeah. And then ICW is on the 6th of February. So it's a busy weekend for me.
It may have gone up, but I'm not quite sure when this will go up. I'll be completely honest.
Who knows? You need to do you. You've got a lot of stuff going on as well. So like, you do.
So if we take this back, Jen, what came first? Working in the wrestling industry or your wrestling fandom?
Wrestling fandom, like definitely. That all kind of started really when I was about, I think it was 11. It was 1998. It was the 1998 Royal Rumble that actually got me into it. I know. I'm old, Tom. I'm old. No,
I was just saying that's the perfect, like, it almost feels like the perfect storm. 1998, which is probably the greatest year in wrestling.
I would say potentially up there, like hence why it drew me in so much. So yeah, no, it was like 1998 where I kind of like got first involved in it, and it was like funny because I had never really, I'd heard of wrestling and stuff at school and things when you know all the people talk about it and stuff at school, but it wasn't really anything that interested me. I was actually obsessed with Gladiators. If you remember that TV show. So I was like really obsessed with Gladiators as a kid, and I used to like tape it from the telly. Yeah. On the Saturday night when it was on, and then I would go round to my friend's house and we would watch like whatever we taped. And it was one night he actually had wrestling and he had the 98 Royal Rumble, so it was like the summer of 98, so I didn't actually watch it live or anything. But yeah, so I brought my trusty Gladiators videotape and I was like, I'm ready to watch this, and he was like, let's watch this instead, and I was like, okay. And I was just hooked. I was like, this is real life Gladiators. This is amazing. Like, so that was it. And then kind of got involved. Well, started watching it like more prominently for a good few years. Like, I was never allowed to stay up and watch it live, and we didn't have Sky, so I could never watch it like the pay-per-views and stuff. So we would always rely on like when the tapes either came like into the video shop or you know, if somebody managed to like tape it or something. So yeah, we would kind of be all on a delay, and I don't think I watched anything chronologically either. So.
No.
It was just as and when, and it was amazing and I loved it. And then I did fall away from it, to be fair, and that was like in the early 2000s. Kind of fell away from it, I'd say around about like 2003, and then got back into it I think 2014, 13, something like that, and then ended up working in it. It's so bizarre. Didn't expect it.
Wow. So a lot to unpack in that statement. First of all, as a Gladiators fan, what were some, and you basically used the comparison of it being real life Gladiators.
Yeah.
What were some of the immediate comparisons you saw between the Gladiators and wrestling?
To be fair, it had to be the fact that it was like just the way they looked like superstars. I mean, Gladiators was always built on that thing where it was like normal people, even though they were like the fittest of normal people you could ever imagine. Like it was normal people versus gladiators, and they just had this, like, I was obsessed with them. Like Wolf and Zodiac was my favorite. So like, you know, all these people, Jet, Lightning, all of them, Saracen, they just looked like stars. Like they looked like nobody I'd ever seen before. And the thing is, the contenders, they would come in and I'd be like, oh yeah, it looks like somebody I'd seen down the road. So it was, you know, it just felt like they were up against something crazy. And then when you start watching WWE like I did, or WWF at the time, I was just like, they're all gladiators. I don't understand. I was like, and they're fighting against each other. This is wild. Like, it was so cool.
And then you watched throughout the remainder of the Attitude Era till, as you say, 2003. Do you remember what it was in 2003 that made you go,
To be honest, no, it wasn't even like, I'd been slowly like petering out, if I'm honest. Because that time I was like, gosh, now I'm gonna show my age. 2003, I would have been like 16. So I was at that age, you know, that way where I'm like discovering, going out and like, you know, doing things I shouldn't be doing. So that became my kind of thing, and I wanted to kind of go down that. So it just kind of, everything kind of fell by the wayside in that sense. Like my music taste changed, like how I dressed, like everything changed. And I think that's a really pivotal point in a lot of people's like life. So yeah, I just kind of, it was one of these things, like there was never a moment where I went, I don't want to watch this anymore. I just got obsessed with new things, things that I really shouldn't have.
Fair enough. So, and then wrestling is out of your life for, did you say 2014?
So yeah, I would say probably about 10 years. Like I say, it was out my life. It never was completely out my life. Like I dipped in and out. Normally when I would see on like Freeview channels, like Impact was always kind of on. So I would watch like every so often if I was just kind of like scrolling TV, and I would see like on the Freeview, remember like the Freeview page, and it came up like with the guide and stuff. If I saw a wrestling thing, I'd be like, I'll just click on it and have a look. And I always remember whenever I would look at like Impact, it would have people like, you know what I mean, like it would have like the Dudleys, or it would have like Hogan or like Kurt Angle or somebody, and I'm like, oh my god, I know them. Like I don't know them, but I was like, I know what you mean though. But I was like, oh my gosh. So I would like find myself watching that and then get kind of like hooked on stories. So I would maybe go back like a couple of weeks, like, you know, and watch stuff. But like I was never like, I wouldn't say that I was like, you know, actively seeking it out, but I would always dip in and out.
But these Impact watchings, did people in your life, like your friends, know about them, or was it almost like your, I don't want to say secret shame, because you shouldn't be ashamed to be a wrestling fan, but was it sort of like, this is what I do on my alone time sort of thing? I'm trying to figure out how to phrase that question.
I know it's like my dirty little secret. No, to be fair, like not at all. Like it was, like I feel it's funny, like speaking to so many people. Obviously now that I'm within the wrestling community and speak to so many people in it, I would never have like considered myself before in the community. I was very much a casual fan, and then when you kind of start to speak to people about it, and so many people have gone through this stage where they're like, oh my goodness, I couldn't tell anybody, I couldn't tell. And funnily enough, what got me right back into like fandom, proper fandom, was actually an ex-boyfriend who I was going out with at the time, and he was like such a closet fan, like such a secret fan. And it was one night he was over at mine, and again this like flicking the channels and Impact came up, and I was like, or TNA at the time, and I was like, oh, do you mind if I just quickly put this on? And he was like, sorry, what? You know, that way it was always, I think he was shocked thinking that I think he thought that I was trying to call him out, that I'd figured it out, and I was like, I'm going to put this on and shame you. But I was like, oh, I used to watch it as a kid, like love it. Sometimes I dip in, and he was just like, I think that was the moment that he was like, oh, she's good.
I love that story. I'm not going to lie.
But it was so funny, and he just like burst out, like after we watched it, he was just like, I'm a huge wrestling fan. And I had no idea. I'd been dating him for months and I had no idea. And then I remember going around to his like mum's house and he had like all the figures. He had like all the shirts. All, like, I mean, he was like a proper fan on forums and stuff. And I was like, wow, you put me to shame. So yeah, he got me into it. Now that he knew that I was a safe space for that, he was just like, right, let's get right into this. So we did, and it was great. So I owe him a lot for that.
That's really cool to hear. With the rise of social media in the wrestling world, obviously it can be a very toxic place, as you were saying right at the beginning. But do you think less people may fall out of wrestling because you can connect with other fans through the mediums of social media?
Yeah, because like, let's face it, like I think back then there wasn't social media, like there really wasn't. There was forums and stuff you could go online and do, but Tom, I'm really like computer literate, like I'm bad with technology. I'm so bad. So I wouldn't know like a forum from a browser. Like, do you know what I mean? I just wouldn't know. Like, so
Yeah.
I couldn't find that kind of information or anything. And to be fair, I'm not the kind of person that would seek that out. At the time anyway. So I think now that it's so much easier to access this and to find people who are into the same things that you're into. Like, social media can be a toxic place, but there is actually so many more channels and outlets and connections that are so positive that if you are a wrestling fan and you're kind of like ashamed about it, you've got a really sound wrestling community there and people will look out for you. So I think it's nice, and I do think it's probably going to help a lot of people not fall away, or if they do kind of fall away from the product as such and don't want to watch it weekly, they can catch up easy, like, you know. So it's good. I think it's a good thing.
Speaking of watching the product week, and I 100% agree with you, by the way. Speaking of watching products weekly, that was really hard to say.
It's hard. It's a tongue twister.
I don't know why, but what is like your weekly consumption of wrestling now?
It feels like a lot, to be honest, but I don't. But that's only because of my podcast. So when we do our podcast, like Sondra and I do Queen Street Posse.
What is your
Tuesday.
podcast, by the way? We'll get that plug in while we're there.
Love it. Love it. It's Queen Street Posse. It runs on the Inside the Ropes Twitch live every Tuesday at 9 o'clock, or normally 9:10 because, you know, I'm late all the time. So normally a wee 10-minute wait, but I'm always there. But yeah, so we kind of talk about what's happened this week, like things that are coming up. So not necessarily always just like blow by blow accounts of what's happened in shows, but, you know, things like if it's run up to, like, for example, the Rumble now. So we've been talking about like Rumble stuff. We've been talking about like news that we've seen on Twitter, like releases and stuff. Like, so we kind of cover everything like within what's really going on in wrestling in that time. So check it out.
And the name of that podcast is again?
Queen Street Posse, like Mean Street Posse.
I like that.
I came up with that name. It was like one of my crowning moments in life.
How long did it take you to come up with the name?
Tom, I could show you screenshots of the conversation that Kenny, Sondra and Ollie and I were having on this, and it literally took me about half an hour, but there was like so many, I can't even, one of the other ones was Right to Femser, because we wanted to focus on the fact there was two females doing it, and I was like, you're Right to Femser, and like all these other, I mean, some of the stuff that I was throwing out, Tom, was absolute garbage, like, but I've copyrighted them all, so nobody can steal them.
Fair enough. So then are you basically watching Raw, SmackDown, basically everything that's available to be able to cover it?
Yeah, totally. So we just kind of, to be fair, I won't lie, I skim things now. I'm not in a, like, wrestling for me right now, or like the main storylines and stuff just now are not gripping me, especially in WWE. So
fair enough.
Yeah, it's just one of these times, like I always feel as if there's lulls, like for me personally, where I'm just like, I'm into this and I'm not into that. Right now, there's nothing I'm massively into, but I am so psyched for the Rumble because that's where everything happens. That's where all the new storylines happen. That's where, you know, you kind of get the kickoff for WrestleMania. So that's kind of what I'm excited for. So I'm kind of like letting this build up, be slow, and then I'm excited to see what happens next weekend.
I'd say it's the calm before the storm.
Exactly, that's what I think too, and I think it's going to be a big like burst into what can happen. There's some things I'm really into right now. Like I'm loving Brock. Never thought I would love Brock Lesnar. Like I was always quite vocal about how much I hated Brock Lesnar. Now he's my favorite. Like,
oh, because you missed his rise as well.
Yeah, so I never kind of got it really, and then when I came in I was just like, oh, who's this big scary man? I'm not a fan. Now I'm like, I love Brock Lesnar, he's amazing. So yeah,
Had he beaten the streak by the time you, and I apologise for interrupting you, by the way.
No, don't ever apologise. No, I talk too much. You need to just cut me off, Tom.
It's fine. Had he beaten the streak by the time you came back?
Oh, but when I came back, yeah, I watched that live. So that was just like, to be fair, it's one of my favorite like WrestleMania moments. Like, because Kenny and everyone was there, and so all my friends, like, they were all there. All the Inside the Ropes people, they all tend to go to WrestleMania and stuff like that every year. So this year is my first WrestleMania that I'll be at.
Ooh.
I know, I'm so excited.
That really surprises me. You haven't been. Obviously, the last 2 years has been very difficult because of, we're not going to go there.
That big social thing that happened.
Yeah.
Global thing, not social.
Yeah.
But yeah, so because that was the thing, is I was actually supposed to, we had everything booked to go to Florida in 2020. So that was all booked, like our accommodation, flights, you name it, tickets, our WrestleMania tickets, which we had like such hot tickets as well, like really great seats. And yeah, it was the week of everything shutting down that we found out. So I was devastated, like absolutely gutted. So this was the kind of thing, as we thought, we'll wait and see. When that all happened, we're like, we'll wait and see what happens with next year. And then obviously next year we were just like, nah, we're gonna leave it. And then Dallas got announced, and we were just like, right, let's just go, let's just book it, and we'll see what happens. So yeah, fingers crossed, everything so far, like
I'm crossing my fingers for you guys. Like,
I appreciate it. I need it. I'm like, I need to go.
Mania is definitely on my bucket list. I'm not gonna lie.
Have you ever been? No.
No, I've never done America, but like I've been to a few indie shows and they're all amazing.
Nice.
So,
oh, what indie shows have you been to?
Nothing like ICW. I do want to catch an ICW show, by the way.
You should. You'd love it.
I don't know if you know a company called WrestleForce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've caught a couple of their shows.
Nice. Is that your local promotion?
Yeah, they sort of tour around my area quite regularly.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. Oh, fab. Oh, that's good that you've managed to get to like at least some like stuff. And have they got shows back up and running now?
Yeah. Funny enough, I probably would have been. I'm talking about myself. I do apologize.
I'm sorry. This is what I do because it's an interviewer thing, Tom. Like,
yeah. Funny enough, I may have been by the time this goes out, but the 12th of February, I'm catching a show in Southend.
Oh, okay, fabulous. Oh, that's exciting. Who's on the card? Do you know?
No, and I don't know if you're like bringing it back to you. When you go to a pay-per-view, do you want to know what's on the card? Because the smaller cards that I've been to, I just want to see wrestling. I'm like, I don't care who's on the card. It's fun.
I think it like not for like so pay-per-view wise. This will be my first pay-per-view I've ever been at.
Okay.
I've been so lucky where I've been to like a lot of like indie shows and stuff like that, but I've actually not had to work on, which has been fun. But yeah, no, I like to know kind of like who's there, what to like, not what to expect, because I think there's a lot to be said for when there's surprises and, you know, people you didn't know, because the amount of times where I have been working shows and, you know, I've obviously known who the surprise is and stuff like that. And then you get to see the reaction of the fans, like when they get that surprise, like that's amazing. But I do think it's important to kind of announce like some people. I don't think you need to like mention every match on the card. But yeah, I think it's good to get people in the doors, because like everyone's got their favorites, everybody's got what they really want to see. So yeah, it's like it's important as a promoter, I think, to do that and to utilize that information. But they know, the thing is, like a good promotion knows when and when not to announce something.
True. So like, going back to like your weekly consumption of wrestling, if you were not involved with, what's the name? The name has escaped me. I'm really sorry.
For ICW?
No, your podcast.
Oh, Queen Street Posse.
Queen Street Posse. Do you think you'd keep up with as much wrestling as you do?
Maybe not as much as I do. Like I read up on it like every day. So that's my kind of thing. It's like what I like to do is I like to wake up in the morning. I like to snooze my alarm for an extra 10 minutes. And then I'll get up and I like to have a wee coffee and I like to just scroll through wrestling news or Twitter or something like that and just kind of see what's been going on, what I've missed. Like, because obviously, like you'll know as well, living in the UK, a lot of stuff happens when we're in bed.
Yeah.
So I'm like to have a wee look and see what's going on. And I probably right now, with how I'm feeling about storylines and stuff, I would probably just be doing that as opposed to going and being like watching the shows as such. And it's hard as well. Like I work full time and I work crazy hours, so it's kind of hard.
In that case, I appreciate you sitting down to do this.
No, I appreciate you asking me. Thank you. But no, it's one of these things, like you just kind of make the time for it. It's important to me and I want to give everybody like a good time on Queen Street Posse. I think Sandra does take the lead a lot because she is just so, like that's her full-time job. Like she works in wrestling, so she's got so many amazing insights and stuff. She's a writer now for Inside the Ropes magazine.
Oh wow.
So she's got so many amazing insights. Like I learned so much from her, and she's only been a wrestling fan since 2000 and I want to say 11. She's been a wrestling fan, so she didn't know nothing about like the Attitude Era or anything like that. So it's funny to like speak to her about that kind of stuff and like all the stuff that she watches. So yeah, it's really cool. It's a fun podcast.
How different is your chemistry with Sandra off camera than say your chemistry whilst recording the podcast?
Not different at all. Like we are just two pals. Like I've only actually met Sandra like in the flesh twice, I think. And it's been on Inside the Ropes tours. So I've only met her a couple of times. She lives in I should have explained this. Sandra actually lives in Tulsa in America.
Okay.
So she's come over a couple of times for like our bigger tours to help out. She's been podcasting with Kenny since I think 2012, 13.
They're two bucket list interviews, I'm not going to lie.
I'll put a word in. With Sandra and Kenny. Come on. Like
Kenny has said he's down for it, just not right now because he's very busy.
Oh, do you know Kenny's literally just moved house? I helped him move house this week, so like he's
like, contact me in a few months, which I will do.
Yeah, do you know what you should do? And I will 100% put a word in. I promise you on that one.
Thank you.
It was Sandra. I'll see Sandra tomorrow on Queen Street Posse. So I'm like, Sandra, hit him up. Come on. Sandra would be great. Like, such an interesting person to talk to. Such a different kind of
perspective.
Yeah, that's exactly the word. Thank you. Like she does, and it's so good. It's so refreshing to speak to her. Plus, as well, I get to see my pal every Tuesday, and that is exactly what we're like on the podcast. Is like kind of, it's actually probably more of a watered down version of what we're like in real life, because we'll sit like before and after the podcast just chatting away just about everything, and then we're like, oh god, we need to do this.
so you've mentioned a few times not being so infused with wrestling right now, but what is the one show that you're like, or one storyline that you're, in your case, that you're like, okay, this is what's keeping me invested right now?
Okay, so right now I would say probably I'm loving, like I actually was loving the Bobby Lashley and Brock stuff, like because it's never happened before, and I didn't like, I don't know if you saw like the VT, the video package they did, like not well, of course not today because Raw's on today if it's Monday. Sorry, kayfabe. Like last week, the video package they did, I was like blown away by it. Like just the hype for it, and I was like, I'm so invested in that. But I suppose apart from that, like I'm still loving like the Roman story, like, you know, with the kind of like who is gonna be the person that takes him off this like title. Like I'm excited for that. There's a few really good stories going on just now. I think it's more just like it's more the people that I really love. I'm not into their stories. Do you know?
Yeah, I get you. So who is someone that you really love that you're like, oh, they could do better with you, sort of thing? I can't see. I'm not gonna lie.
Can you not see? It's Kevin Owens.
Okay.
Kevin, like, see, especially because the way I'm thinking about it for our Kev, is that you know, because we didn't know he was going to be part of WWE. Like, I genuinely was thinking like Rumble, that's it, we're saying bye, it's going to be the last hurrah, and then he re-signed this like multi-year contract. So now I'm thinking there's going to be something huge in the pipeline for him. So I'm excited for that. Like, that's why I think like it's going to happen at Rumble. Like, we're going to see the storyline that like takes him to Mania. That's what I'm excited to see. So I'm excited to see that. But right now I'm just kind of, I feel like he's just a bit lost with Seth and all this kind of stuff. Like, I feel as if like WWE right now
is in a bit of a lull, as we were saying earlier.
Yeah, they're just in a bit of a like, everyone kind of seems to get like off into like random tags and random like 3-ways and stuff like that. I'm like, there's no real compelling kind of mid-card stories for me currently. But yeah, I'm thinking after the Rumble there's going to be something massive. I really am excited to see what happens with my friend Nikki Ash or ASH.
Yeah.
Like I'm excited to see what happens there. Like, it's not going the way I thought it was, like with her heel turn, where she's still kind of the same character, but
still the superhero, correct?
Yeah, but this is the thing, is I thought she would turn into this like super villain and like change her gear and stuff, but she's not. But I like where this could potentially be going. So yeah, like there's loads of rumblings and like kind of things I think could happen. And this is the thing in Queen Street Posse, it's basically me just fantasy booking everyone.
Fair enough.
That's it. I just literally spend the whole time going, this is what I think could happen, and it'll be fun. So we'll see.
Yeah. So what about your outside of WWE consumption? Do you have much or not at all, really?
Oh, is the internet gone funny?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. That's good. Yeah. You skipped a wee bit.
Oh, did I? My internet is not the greatest. I do apologise.
Oh, no.
So what is like your consumption of non-WWE?
I'll dip into like AEW kind of like weekly just to see kind of what's going on. Like, I don't watch it weekly, but I will dip into it. And then obviously like I'm surrounded so much by like ICW, so I see that all the time, know everything that's going on there. And then like I still like try and catch like some indie promotions that I love. Like, I love GCW, so I'll try and catch up and see, not necessarily like I say watch, but just see what's going on and, you know, kind of catch up with that. So it's kind of, it's mostly WWE focused, I won't lie. And I feel more kind of confident, like
talking about it almost.
Yeah, almost. As opposed to other things, because I do miss quite a lot. Especially on AEW. So, you know, I'm kind of only going by from when I've been reading about things. I'm like, oh, that interests me. I want to see what that was. So I'll go and watch it. So I'm not watching like full shows. So I'm missing a wee bit out. But yeah, it's one of these things where in a time where, do you not think there's just so much?
Yeah, there's too much.
Like, so much that I'm just like, I don't even know where to like start. I mean, we're spoiled for choice. It's a great thing.
I would rather, and I don't know if you feel the same, but I would rather have too much choice than one company and be like, I'm bored of this now.
Absolutely. No, I'm 100% on the same team there with you, Tom, because I think we've got to a point where like, I mean, you've seen what it was like when it was like WWE take over WCW, and then it was just, that was the product, that was what you watched, and then you saw the rise of these indie promotions like ECW and stuff all coming up, like, you know, be getting more prominent because people want that choice. So I think it's really important that we do have all this, and plus as well, it means that everyone's got somewhere to work, which is amazing.
As someone that works in the wrestling business, which we will get into how you got in a second, if you don't mind.
Of course.
I suppose that's something that's quite close to your heart as well. There's many promotions being out there means that more wrestlers can work, sort of thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's like, it gets to a point, obviously I don't kind of like do a lot of cross promotional things, like, I mean, I am now, but like, I don't do a lot of that. Like, I'm quite, I suppose, like, just that's, ICW just works for me and stuff. But seeing friends like who are wrestlers, like one of my best friends, Molly Spartan, seeing the work that she's getting to travel like all over the world now with it, and it's just like, it's mad to see, and it's just so fulfilling to see like your friends succeed and be able to go and chase their dreams and do this. So I think it's so important, like, that they have this and, you know, are able to go and do that. It's one thing I do love about AEW is the fact that even within
it's
their
another big place, like, I suppose.
Well, no, yeah, it's another big place for them to go. But even like in AEW, like a lot of their contracts mean that they can work with other kind of trusted promotions. I mean, they're not exactly going to be like straight on to like go to this backyard wrestling match. You know
I know what you
like,
mean, though.
You know what I mean? Like trusted wrestling promotions, like, and then that's such a buzz as well when you get to see, like, for people who especially who do follow, like I don't follow Japanese wrestling at all. And when you see people who are like big New Japan fans, and then there's like crossovers and stuff there, and they're just like, like, it's amazing for them. So I think it's a really cool thing that AEW have got set up, and, you know, can have this cross promotion thing. So more to it.
So if we get into your career in the wrestling sphere, shall we say, how did you first join up with ICW?
Oh, like I always wish it was like such a pure X Factor story about how I tried so hard, I did this, but it's not. It's really boring. I organised a night out, and my friend Dunk, who is one of the promoters for ICW, I've known Duncan since I was 18, I think, when I started like going to like rock and metal gigs in Glasgow, and he was the promoter that put them on. And then he ended up getting involved with ICW and Mark Dallas, and came on as like a kind of promoter for them as well. And one night I arranged this night out in Glasgow where it was basically just all my pals from like 2005. And I basically just, because we would all kind of like growing up a bit, this was like 2014, I think, 15. And I was like, we've not seen each other, like all of us together, because it used to be one of these things, like there's a club in Glasgow called the Cat House, and you used to be able to go in there on your own and you would see all your friends. Like, it was so bizarre. You didn't need to even like arrange it. You'd just be like, oh, hi, everyone's here. So I arranged a night out where I was like, right, it's going to be purely 2005, and like spoke to the DJ, and we played tunes from 2005, and it was so fun. And Dunk was there. And obviously after a few shandies, we got talking, and he'd said, oh, you're a wrestling fan, aren't you? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, you know, I'm working with ICW now. And I was like, yeah, no, I've heard, congratulations. And he went, you know, you should totally do it. And I genuinely thought he meant I should be a wrestler. And I was like,
yeah, genocide.
Yeah, totally. So I was like, yeah, I'm there. That's it. I'm ready. And then he was like, no, like, you should be an interviewer. And I was like, oh, I don't really know how I feel about that. Because I just didn't think that I would be good at it, if I'm honest. Like, I just was like, oh, but I was like, I'll go along and I'll see and I'll speak to people. And then
oh no,
the first show that like I went around to one of the other shows, and then Dallas met me and was like, oh yeah, definitely, like, would like you to come to Barramania, which was like their big show at the Barrowlands, which is like an iconic venue in Glasgow. And he was like, why don't you just come along to this show, and we'll show you backstage. And I was like, great. So I just thought I was going there to, like, you know, see how it worked. And then literally they were like, here's a microphone, there's a big demo, Killian Dane, he's just stolen the belt, do you want to interview him? And I'm like, no.
Did you have any experience in interviewing before?
None whatsoever. Literally, apart from like just going out and talking to people and asking them really like ridiculous questions about themselves. That was none whatsoever. But like, I don't know, they seemed to like what they saw. Obviously, I'd watched a lot of the product by then. Like Renee was still interviewing then, and I love Renee Young. So I was like proper like this, and like I love Mean Gene, so I was like, you know, all these kind of things that I was like, right, just call on their energy and do it. And they seemed to like what I did, so yeah, they kept me around. I've never been told to leave, and that's been what, 7 years later.
Wow. So you brought up Renee Young and Mean Gene there. What is something that you've taken from each of them in your interviewing style?
Oh gosh, right. Mean Gene always dressed impressive. No, I don't know. I think for Mean Gene, like Mean Gene is just the GOAT for me. He's someone that I couldn't be like, because Mean Gene could always like stand up to wrestlers and stuff like that. He'd be like, right, calm down, you know, he always had like a bit of authority when he was interviewing. I don't have that, but I think that works quite well for my interviewing style, because I feel like my interviewing style kind of gets over people's like heel face kind of ratio a bit. Like, I don't know, like I'm quite even though I'm quite chatty and like quite personable and stuff, I'm quite shy. So I'm always going to be a bit like, oh, if someone's a bit scary, and if someone's really nice, I'm going to be excited to talk to them and stuff. So that's a bit different. But I think Renee was good, like in the sense where she would just get in there and just ask questions, like, and she would ask questions that like you at home, like as a fan, wanted to know, like in relation to like what was getting, like what we would see within like the ring and things like that. It was like all these kind of like questions. So I think that's important, like as an interviewer, is to kind of the people who, especially like as a wrestling interviewer, it's like you're a platform for the people who are watching at home. So you need to be a fan. You need to understand the fan mentality to ask the questions they want to hear. So yeah.
What about so at this time you're doing some work with ICW? How does Inside the Ropes and Cultaholic factor into your career then?
Oh, that was again pure luck. Like I'm the luckiest person in the world. Like seriously, I think it's just I've surrounded myself with some of the most amazing people who then say, do you know what, try this person, or put my name forward for things. So well, Inside the Ropes came first, and that was a friend of mine, James R. Kennedy, who is the commentator in ICW. Him and I are really, really good friends, and we go way back. And he had said to Kenny, because he was doing some stuff with Kenny at the time, and he had said it was when the Sting tour was actually in Glasgow and they needed some extra pair of hands. And he basically just said, he was like, Jen, why don't you come? And said to Kenny, you know, Jen's here, would you be okay with her coming along? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. So that was it. And the minute I walked in the door, it was like, I've met my people, like, you know what I mean? Like you just have such a good like camaraderie with people, and just got on like an absolute house on fire, and then was good at kind of like, they basically, I mean, I was like nobody, like I wasn't on the tours and I wasn't doing anything, they didn't know me, and then they were like, oh, can you go and like just like run for Sting and like make sure he's okay, like see if he wants dinner and stuff. And I'm like, you want me to interact with Sting? It's like, okay. And I did. And you know what? He was so lovely, and they trusted me. And he'd said afterwards, like, you know, everyone in the team was so nice. And he was like, thank you for all your help. And I think Kenny saw that and just was like, right, cool. You're one of us, like you're coming on the tour. So then from that, I was like part of the Inside the Ropes family, like without even knowing. I literally just thought I was there to like lend a helping hand.
Wow.
And then I know, so lucky. And then with Cultaholic, that all kind of came about because of, if you remember, the WCPW days.
Yeah.
So that came about where WCPW got in touch with me to do backstage interviewing for their product. And I was like, yeah, of course, I'd love to. There's a good few guys I knew from up here that were going down to do it. so yeah, got involved with that, and that's how I met Adam and Jack and Sam and Ross and everybody, and like Susie at the time and Lumpy as well. Like met all them, and then when Cultaholic, when the boys were starting Cultaholic, they got in touch with me and said, we would like you to join us. for want of a better phrase.
So how does that turn into This Week in Wrestling then?
That was like, this is it. Like they got in touch. It was Adam that got
Sorry,
in
it
touch
was
with
This
me.
Day in Wrestling first, wasn't it?
It was this day in wrestling, yeah. So we did it every day, which was wild. It's a lot of gin, like, seriously. But
Yeah.
no, it was great. It was great. It was fun. Like they basically just said, they approached me and they were like, "We want you to be involved in the channel. Like we've started this up. We're doing this, that, and the other thing." And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And we kind of were back and forth for months. Like this was before we kind of like they even launched. We were kind of like in chats about it and like kind of figuring out like what I would do, because nobody knew me on YouTube. Like it was like the guys, like, you know, they were the kind of the faces from like What Culture and stuff.
Again, they sort of vouched for you, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah, exactly. And this was it. They'd said like they had liked what I'd done in WCPW and things that I'd seen. So they were like, no, we think that you would be good as like an on-camera person. And I wasn't so sure. So we kind of like had a bit of a kind of back and forth about where I would fit in. And then yeah, we came up with This Day in Wrestling, and they were like, we'll do this like daily show where we talk about, and it's only going to be short, you know, like 15 minutes or something like that, and we'll do like what we spoke about. And I was like, sure, okay, we'll do it. And they were like, we'll do it with one of us, and it's like a rotating kind of cast with for them. And that was really that. And then we can, as time went on, we realized like it was a bit much, like, because I was going down every couple of weeks to film, and it
I
was
was
just
just going
quite
to
a
ask
lot.
you about that, like the filming process.
Yeah. So, well, the filming process at first, it was like every couple of weeks I was going down and we would like block film like all the episodes. So it was like 14 episodes really that we would film. And the thing is like as much as like on YouTube they appeared as 15 minutes, you'll know what this is like. Editing is a nightmare. So like literally it would be like, you know, 45 minutes we would literally record for like one episode and then having to whittle it down. So it was really kind of a lot. It was a lot of time on them and a lot of time on like, well, them mostly. Like I was just going down there and having a jolly. I just loved to go and see my pals. And then we decided to do This Week, and we made it more of a podcast format where I would go down once a month and we would record the 4 episodes, because that was the beauty of it, is because it's all stuff that's been, so nothing needed to be current. So it was really, they were the best times. Like I had so much fun doing them.
And then of course you started, this was pre-pandemic, right? Doing your Seeing the Best In series, correct?
Yeah. So
how did that come about?
So that came about because naturally This Week in Wrestling came to an end. We did it for a year. So
why did that come to an end?
Because, well, we'd done it for a year. So after the year, we were kind of like, what's the point in carrying on? Because we'll only have the newer, like that 1 year to talk about.
Yeah.
So there would be we'd be repeating everything again. So we were just like, let's just, it was a really natural thing. And it was kind of always, we'd all knew that was what was going to happen. It was going to be a year series, and that was it. Potentially like bring it back like after a good few years, when
5 years time, a reunion episode.
Yeah, maybe you never know. But yeah, so we kind of all knew it. We were like, oh, sad. I mean, I got really emotional. I cried on the last one. I was like,
oh wow,
I know I was such a loser. But it was just because like
it shows you enjoyed your work.
To be fair, I just enjoyed seeing my friends every month.
And that as well.
It didn't feel like work. It never once felt like work for me. And it was just it was so nice getting down there to see everybody and, you know, just get straight into it, chat to your pals. I mean, like you'll have seen, like they do just slag me rotten. Like,
that was like, I've got to be careful how I phrase this, but like, that was some of the more enjoyable stuff. Like you'd almost have 2 of them ganging up on you and like, I'm here to help you guys. Don't slag me off.
I know. I was like, that guys, like, come on, it's a nice show.
Going on to that, who do you feel like you had the best chemistry with when it came to this week in wrestling?
Oh, okay. This is so hard because I like love the boys all equally, like so much.
Yeah.
But I always think me and Ross, genuinely, we have like a pure brother and sister relationship. But then you've got Adam as well. And Adam would get wee slide digs in, and like I speak to Adam quite a lot as well. And then Sam as well, like Sam and I get on like an absolute house.
Sam has such a dry sense of humor that it's like
so funny.
So funny. He's been on my channel before. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I did see his interview, and do you know what? Like, I would love more interviews with Sam Driver because he is actually fascinating to listen to. We like when I used to go down, like sometimes I'd be like, right, everybody, that's me finished. I don't have to get my train for another hour, so let's get to the pub. Sam would always be the first person to come to the pub with me, and we would always chat like music and stuff. Sam and I have really similar tastes in music, so we would always kind of talk about that. You know, he's just such a great guy, and like you say, he's such a dry sense of humor that sometimes you actually need to pause.
I felt so bad the day, and this isn't going to be about me because we have got to wrap this up soon. I'm not going to lie, but I was so hungover the day I did my interview with him.
Oh, shut up! You didn't see that, Tom. You're a professional.
It was like, but to be honest, I was in bed like an hour before I did the interview. I was so hungover, and it was like, have a shower, try because you've got to do this. And then literally, I said it to Sam off camera. I was like, I'm so hungover. I'm so sorry.
I love that. You and I are spirit animals, Tom, because I'm always hungover. So.
Yeah. So, as I say, so you felt like you had the best chemistry with Ross, Sam, and Adam, right?
And Jack as well. Like I did.
And
Jack and I like would always kind of have a laugh. Like I feel terrible. I don't even mention him there, but like I got sidetracked.
My question is though, Jen, will we see a video of you and Tom Campbell in the near future?
Potentially. I don't know. It's funny. Like at Tom, I love Tom, and I'm actually so gutted that our time kind of like we literally were like ships in the night when like when he kind of came in and I kind of came off. So it was hard. Like when I went down and started like seeing the best, and you'd be there. And Tom
going back to that, how did that come about then?
Oh, so that was just a kind of case of like, how can we get me back on the channel? And like I had said to the guys that I wanted to do something similar to like This Week in Wrestling, like in terms of like the podcast setting. I just always felt I bounced off like people better rather than being a presenter. Like I like chatting as opposed to telling or speaking about me or like, you know, something. So, but we agreed like this would be a really good natural thing for like how I always viewed wrestling, and it was trying to find the good things in it. So we worked together, I worked with the writers and stuff, and we kind of came up with like things that I personally saw the best in that loads of people hated.
The McMahon family is the one that springs to mind.
I love them, Tom. I love them.
Fair enough. So I think the big question is, Jen, before we do like my wrap-up questions of generic questions and then the video that I end on the question that I end all my interviews on, I meant to say, is will we see a Cultaholic reunion in 2022?
I hope so. Yeah, there's nothing like planned, but now that I'll be back, well, I'm back down in Newcastle on the 5th of February for North. Tom, bless his wee heart, because it was Tom that put me forward for this.
Did he? I was just going to ask you that.
Yeah, he did, because he's an angel. Although I'm kind of like hating him for it because I'm so scared. But Tom is going to be there, and I've said to the boys, so hopefully they'll be there too. And then we can discuss like our big reunion. As
a fan, I hope so. Like, do you know what I mean?
I really wanted to see my pals again. Like after my last time of seeing them on that Christmas night out where I'm in an absolute show of myself, I need to redeem myself, Tom.
Please tell me the story off camera, because I won't make you tell the story off camera.
I'll tell you off camera, I promise.
Fair enough. So as we wrap this up, Jen, obviously I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, honestly.
Was it as bad as you thought it was going to be?
No, you're so easy to talk to.
Thank you.
Honestly, thank you so much. Like, you're a fantastic interviewer. Like, you really, really are. You're very personable and you make me feel really at ease. So thank you.
Well, thank you. So, as we wrap this up, we're going to do a segment that I call generic questions, which, if you guys have seen my videos before, you will know this is where I ask my guests the questions that I'm sure they get asked on social media every day, like their favourite match, their favourite pay-per-view, their favourite superstar, etc. And then now they'll have a place to go, I've answered this, go
refer
to this. Okay, so Jen, favourite match of all time?
Potentially TLC 2.
Favourite pay-per-view of all time?
1998 Royal Rumble.
Is that because of the nostalgia aspect?
Purely for the nostalgia. I mean, it's not a great show, but for me, it was like I hold it in such high regard. Like, if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for Goldust and Luna, like, honestly, I would never have been into this because they hypnotized me when I first saw them. So yeah.
So, favourite superstar of all time?
Chris Jericho.
Favourite superstar currently?
Kevin Owens.
Okay. Favourite theme song of all time?
Film star.
Theme song.
Oh, right, theme song. I thought you said film star, and I was like, "Oh gosh, that's a left ball."
That's out of left field.
Favourite theme song. This is hard because there's a few. Do you know
Take
what?
out current ones, because I'm going to ask you your current one in a minute.
Okay, right. So it used to be my phone ringtone, but AJ Lee's "Let's Light It Up, Light It Up."
Yeah.
Loved it. I loved it.
And then favourite theme song currently?
Currently, I mean, it's got to be Judas.
Yeah. Like, do you think that is so beloved because of the fact that the crowd now sings it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a great tune. Like, don't get me
Oh,
wrong,
yeah.
it's an absolutely great tune. But I think when you see it, like, do you know, for me, like, because I'm such a loser, but like when I see Chris Jericho's wee face and he like is totally drops character when he sees everyone singing it, and I'm
like I remember, I think it might have been Revolution, the one before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Where he is the big heel champion at the time, and literally you hear him all singing, and he's like,
he just cuts down and he's like,
I love
so
this.
cute. I love that. I know. But how could you not? Like, it's just so nice. I love it.
And then the question I end all my videos on, Jen, is with YouTube, with podcasting, with social media, with being involved in the wrestling industry, we're all going to live forever in some sort of ways. So what is one video that you're like, or podcast that you're like, don't go back and watch that. I've grown a lot since then. And then what is one that you're like, if you want to know my body of work, go check that out?
Tom, that's a massive question. That's so good. No one's ever asked me that, by the way. No one. That's an amazing question. I think if don't watch my Straight to Hell.
Really?
Boss, like, yeah. That took so much, so much convincing. I talk about it in the video, but it took so much convincing. Did not want to do it. And still sometimes, like, if it comes up, sometimes it pops up on my, because obviously I subscribe to Cultaholic and stuff and ICW, and it pops up on my YouTube sometimes, like as a recommended for you, and I'm like, no, get that away. So not that. However, if you do want to get to know me a wee bit, that's a good one to start with. And you know what? I'm going to say this one, Tom, because I'm thinking that you're going to go really far in the future, and I'm glad that I'm here now.
Thank you. But that is a cop-out. That's not a cop-out answer, but like, come on. Only because I pin videos to descriptions and stuff.
Right,
and I can't pin my own.
Let me see. I would say... Okay, right. The one that I want people to remember me by is an interview I did with Kevin Nash at ICW, and he asked for my phone number.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I nearly died, Tom. I nearly died, literally, because I just had no idea, and I was just like, sorry. You just see me go bright red. So that's
to be
why
honest, Jen, I think that's a beautiful way to end it, to be honest. So, where can the good people find you?
So if anyone wants to follow me on social media, you can find me at _Jen Louise_ on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow Queen Street Posse on the Inside the Ropes Twitch channel, which is at Inside the Ropes on Twitch. And that's on every Tuesday at 9:30 live. And yeah, and I'll be at North. I'll be at North Wrestling in Newcastle on February the 5th. So I think that's all the things I've got coming up. And ICW, oh my gosh, ICW, they're all the time. So any ICW show, I'll be there.
It's well worth doing, guys. So if you guys like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish. Help the channel grow, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Bye.